Today I'm here on these hallowed grounds, October 2022, and I wanted to share some of the life of Mary Shelley in this video, along with the making of this book. It's made of cardboard. It took about an hour and a half to complete, painted and all. So I hope you enjoy that part of the video. I'm preparing this book and other decorations for Halloween this year. I wanted to share a brief history of the novel Frankenstein, the first. I'll tell you a little of what I know from reading her book. A young girl who created one of the most amazing fictional stories in our history. And briefly, part of Mary's sad and true story in her life was when her husband passed in a boating accident and his body washed ashore. During his cremation, she asked to save his heart, and it's believed that she carried it with her. The woman who created a monster. She was an English novelist, best known for writing Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, 1818. Mary was not formally educated, but read many of her mother's books and absorbed the intellectual atmosphere created by her father and visitors. Among them was Percy Shelley. Her famous mother was a radical feminist and wrote The Vindication on rights of women. The loss of her mother after being born was a sadness that she could never get over. Her father was an author too, William Goodwin, and he raised her after her mother died. He was a scholar and a radical thinker and an author. It came to be that Percy Shelley came to him. He was a poet and wrote poetry and becoming quite famous. And they were both able to help each other. It was at her mother's gravesite that the teenage Mary first declared her love for the poet. When running away with Percy, it led to a life of scandal. After falling in love, they ran away together and were both disowned by their families. She was in love, and they lived out of wedlock for a long time, only because he was married to another woman who eventually died. Mary had many losses in her life, but she carried on strong and overcome this grief. Through the pain, Mary and Percy enjoyed a large group of friends, which included the poet Lord Byron and the writer Leigh Hunt. All of them to challenge each other to a writing contest on who could come up with the best ghost story. Well, from that, Mary created Frankenstein. Lord Byron wrote the novels of the vampire, both very successful in our monster lore. Who could come up with the best one was the challenge. Well, Mary, having both her mother and her father authors, loved the challenge and wanted to give it all her best. It took a while for her to come up with the storyline. It came to her one night in a dream a few days later, and while she lay awake, still half asleep and half awake, her dream carried on, and a vision came to her that scared her to death. And she knew that she could be scared. She could write this story to scare others. It was about a man who loved science, and while he grew up privileged and had every need that he ever needed in life, he decided to create something that no man had ever created before. Well, Mary's book took on a life that she had no understanding of. It was about science, it was about religion, and it was a warning to mankind that man is not meant to play God. Her story is just as important as the story she wrote. Fear not of God or the henchmen on earth. When you read a book and learn the characters, you bring in your own interpretations. Mary's story has many mysteries. Thank you, Mary Shelley. Thank you for the romance and the sadness of your story, Frankenstein. She was barely 18 years old when she took the challenge. As a young girl, her imagination was full, and she could just write from pen to paper as easily as we do these days with the computers that we have. This book is a science fiction, and the question is in her mind, what if? What if? What if? We must be careful of what we do in life, because there are always going to be consequences. It was a Gothic novel and concerned science and religion. Although science had not technically become science at that time, she was ahead of her time. And she wrote of compassion and love and sadness and hate and disdain and fear. Mary suffered depression like many do these days, and she was able to survive and to push forward and to use her talents that God had given her to write so beautifully, and just take our imaginations and bring them to the depth of the soul for understanding the meaning of life and how we can be better people in all of this. In our lifetimes, it's important that we get this right. And she was a beautiful soul, bless her heart. I read her biography when I was 17 years old, and it really made an impression on my life. Before I'd even begun to read Frankenstein. And Frankenstein is one of those novels that just takes you to amazing places. The words that she uses are just beautiful, and as scary as this story is, it's got so much depth and meaning and just takes us to the breadth of our soul for understanding love and compassion and neglect and abuse. It's the scariest thoughts that humankind can conjure. And I had no clue when I got it from the library that she was the one who wrote Frankenstein, and to learn that she helped bring in electricity to the world, just blew me away. I had so much respect for that young woman and all that she was able to contribute to mankind. From my heart to your heart.